Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we're going to continue our Dynasty Fantasy Football trade talk that we started just a few days ago, where I tossed out 5 names or so that I thought would be good targets to attempt to acquire here in the early stages of this fantasy offseason. But today, we're going to be talking about the flip side of things and talking 5 players that I would look to move off of if you are currently holding on your Dynasty roster. So let's not waste any time and let's get into it. As always, if you're new around here to the SFS channel, feel free to click that subscribe button and turn the bell on so you're never late for an episode and are kept up to date with all of our newest information. Also, there's an awesome community Discord server to check out. The invite link is in the description of today's episode to chat with me and other community members about your Dynasty leagues or anything fantasy football. So here, Ezekiel Elliott is going to be my first player on the board to talk about today. If you are still invested into the Ezekiel Elliott arena, it is honestly beyond the time that you have needed to move off of him and get out of your position with Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke's time as a dominant NFL running back, his time as an elite player at his NFL position is gone. Just as quickly as he burst onto the scene in 2016 as a rookie out of Ohio State and caught the NFL by storm, leading a dominant Dallas Cowboys offense that season and looked like he was going to be the bell cow running back, the top dog at that position for the next 5, 6, heck, maybe even 7-year stretch of time. He fizzled out just as fast and has been on a steep decline every season since that rookie 2016 year. And this season, yet again, proved that the steady decline is not just a fluky thing. It is now going to become an ever more present and solidified fact that Ezekiel Elliott is no longer a fantasy running back 1, and Ezekiel Elliott is no longer a long-term hold in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Zeke has been on a steady decline in his yards per attempt each of his NFL seasons here since that rookie season, and this year he saw his worst marker in the attempts per game that he's seeing, down at a low level of 13.9, plummeting from his previous career high of the heights of 24.2 rushing attempts per game. So we are down over 10 rushing attempts per game in the 2021 season, as opposed or in contrast to Zeke's highest workload season in his second NFL year at 24.2 rushing attempts per game. That's not even factoring in his receiving involvement. So a player who was once a dominant workhorse running back, a pound-for-pound slugger that did everything for our fantasy lineups, was a consistency king, and absolutely dominated the football field. Again, he is no longer that, and his days of being that true star running back are now past us. Again, he's no longer an elite running back for that matter, and fantasy football is a completely different animal. So when you consider that, and additionally the fact that Tony Pollard has become an ever more present factor of this offense, his usage soared up here in 2021 as he was used more as a 1-2 punch combo with Zeke, more so than an Ezekiel Elliott true workhorse offense. This is becoming a much more balanced backfield, and again, diverting and delegating those touches to other players in the backfield are eating into Ezekiel Elliott's workload. And if that wasn't enough, you've still got Mike McCarthy present with the Dallas Cowboys organization. It seems like, the first month, 5, 6 weeks of the season, they are all gung-ho about playing smash mouth football, running the ball, playing a balanced offense, and then whether it's Zeke hitting the wall or them just getting lost in the play calling, the running game seems to, the trend here over the past few seasons now is that the running game takes a slip towards the end of the year. It's no longer the dominant and dependable force that it was early on in the season, and the Dallas Cowboys offense becomes increasingly pass happy as the year comes to a conclusion. So I do not trust Ezekiel Elliott. I do not trust Mike McCarthy for the entire extended period of now a 17-game regular season to deliver on expectations with touches to his running backs. At this point, you might even be better off holding a Tony Pollard because nagging injuries have been increasingly becoming a part of Ezekiel Elliott's fantasy profile and something that we have to deal with as the touches rack up on him, and a player who's seen a high volume of workload throughout his career continues to wear down here into, heading into 2022. So I'm moving off of Ezekiel Elliott at this point. Field your offers. If you have specific questions for me down in the comment section below, feel free to let me know down there, or again, ask those questions in the community Discord server, and click that subscribe button again if you're new around here. Moving into our next player, Elijah Mitchell, who in terms of his NFL career and the experience he has, should be a much fresher player than Ezekiel Elliott. He should have a much longer or prolonged lifespan of NFL football ahead of him because he hasn't had those seasons upon seasons stacked upon one another as a workhorse NFL running back. And Elijah Mitchell is someone who, as a talent, I actually really liked. I was quite fond of him coming out of Louisiana. I didn't get the impression that that talent was going to be translated into immediate NFL success because the draft capital was not there from any NFL franchise. The 49ers picked him in the 6th round out of Louisiana. And again, when a guy like a Trey Sermon was drafted multiple rounds ahead of Elijah Mitchell, it was rather surprising that he burst onto the scene here and was the lead back for this 49ers offense. But the reason I am strongly considering you to, or strongly urging you, that is, to move off of your position with Elijah Mitchell in your dynasty leagues is for the simple fact that as long as Kyle Shanahan is the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, any given game, any given season, the lead running back for this team can be changed. And yes, Elijah Mitchell was impressive. He did his job, and he looks the part of a lead back in the National Football League. You still never really know. And injuries are such a crucial factor in this San Francisco offense as to who gets the touches. Once Shanahan finds a hot hand, he sticks with that hand until he has an extreme reason to no longer do so. And that's just the situation with the running back position. You've seen that with Raheem Mostert, and you see that now with Elijah Mitchell. I mean, Raheem Mostert was a player who was expected to be the lead back in this offense this season, suffers a significant injury, and Elijah Mitchell is off to the races after that. Raheem Mostert stepped into a situation because of similar reasons to Tevin Coleman. So there's always that risk that you're running with Kyle Shanahan's offense. He doesn't have any dependability or allegiance to running backs year over year. And again, that is just this running back position. When you take into consideration the involvement and the usage of Deebo Samuel and how he's been involved as a rushing threat this season and the threat that he is from all positions on the field, you now have an almost intrusive force taking away opportunities from Elijah Mitchell in fantasy football, which is not something I'm crazy about. So long term, I see this as a risky hold if you're going to keep Elijah Mitchell on your roster. Again, the age is great. The experience heading into just his second NFL season is good. Obviously, you do have the question marks at the quarterback position as well. Will San Francisco's offense skyrocket next season if Trey Lance is under center? Or will they pull back a little bit with a young QB struggling to get his legs underneath him and get his NFL career kicked off? So Elijah Mitchell, again, someone we're looking to move off of here. And a player I have my wide variety of question marks around. Terry McLaurin, the first wide receiver on the list for today's episode. Don't get me wrong here. I absolutely love what Terry McLaurin represents as a skill player at the wide receiver position. I think he's a fantastic athlete. He has a lot of great traits. He's an awesome route runner, and he's explosive. He can stretch the field and do a wide variety of impactful things on the football field that give him the upside to be a top 12 fantasy wide receiver if he stays healthy for an entire season. However, the main thing holding him back right now is simply the quarterback play on the Washington football team. A quick side note about the Washington football team. Here in just a few weeks, we should get an official rebranding, a new name for that team. So there'll be no more football team. We'll actually have some sort of a mascot, if you will, for that group. But Terry McLaurin has suffered ever since day one in this offense. Now you can, I suppose, debate when Dwayne Haskins was the quarterback for this team. They did have prior chemistry from Ohio State, which actually translated over almost immediately for this team, and Terry was seeing some big shot opportunities downfield and connecting on those strikes with Haskins. But aside from that, you've had a quarterback carousel ranging from Alex Smith to Kyle Allen, the former Carolina Panthers quarterback. Then you go to Fitzmagic for like half of a game this year before he injured his hip and was out for the rest of the season. We never saw him again this year. And then you have Taylor Heineke introduced into the situation down the backstretch of last year, ends up having to come in and play in relief of Fitzmagic, not expected to be their long-term starter, but that ended up being the case this season. And none of those names have shown us the capability of consistently producing numbers for Terry McLaurin, consistently giving him opportunities to produce on his targets. Yes, Terry McLaurin is getting the targets, and I talked about a lot throughout this fantasy season. The target share was great. He was getting a large number of opportunities thrown his direction on almost a weekly basis this year. However, the targets were so uncatchable. They were so low quality of passes heading his direction that he just simply can't overcome that. And that's something that I've really come to the realization of this offseason, is how much bigger of a role a quarterback plays in a wide receiver's outlook than even I anticipated heading into the 2021 season. Yes, the wide receiver position is a dependent position, and I knew that coming in. But again, I think I overestimated the value of target share and the value of being a number one in an offense, albeit, and even though it could potentially be a bad offense, because that can be a detriment if those quality targets aren't there and those opportunities aren't even able to be cashed in upon. They're at the end of the day essentially meaningless. So you would almost rather have a number two wide receiver in an offense with an elite QB that still gets a respectable amount of target share, someone who kind of fits that mold. And I'm not necessarily comparing him directly to a Terry McLaurin in terms of draft position next year and who I'd rather have on my team, but a Gabe Davis is a strong example of a guy who is ascending into a number two wide receiver role for an offense that spreads the football around, not just solely locking in on the number one target, that being Stephon Diggs. And he does have that elite quarterback play with Josh Allen to get him quality opportunities and give him a great chance to have an explosive ceiling. So Terry McLaurin, again, a younger player, super talented, has all of the characteristics you look at and want in a wide receiver. But until Washington shows any sign of addressing this quarterback position in an immediate, impactful way, I am looking to move off of him, because even if they draft a rookie quarterback, I'm not going to rely on that rookie coming in day one and putting up the numbers that we're hoping for, and in turn giving Terry McLaurin the opportunity to be that wide receiver one that his talent shows us he can be, but the situation ultimately deteriorates from that. DJ Moore is a very similar situation. You've got Sam Darnold. We had Cam Newton at points this season. We even had a couple flashes of PJ Walker. You head back even into the 2020 season, you've got Teddy Bridgewater. 4 quarterbacks, 4 players unsuitable for delivering a wide receiver one season, at least at this particular junction in their NFL careers, that being the 4 quarterbacks I just listed. DJ Moore, just like Terry McLaurin, is a fantastic route runner. In 2020, he actually was among the top in the National Football League in terms of hauling in contested catches downfield. So he is a big playmaker. He's explosive. Again, a fantastic route runner. Not exactly the best red zone target. He's a little bit of an undersized, smaller wide receiver, but still someone who's savvy enough, if given the opportunities and targets, could cash in on them. And the QB situation right now is just not competent. And that's played a huge factor in not only seeing DJ Moore's stats decline very quickly after starting out this season looking like he could be a top 12 fantasy wide receiver, looking like someone who, with his elite target share, was going to have a fantastic year, to quickly dropping off a cliff because Sam Darnold eroded the deeper into the season we got. He eventually ended up getting hurt and missing a significant chunk of time. But then after that, they just struggled to find someone that could deliver consistent week-over-week production for DJ Moore without hitting some sort of absurd splash play downfield that resulted in a touchdown. So there are a few options for Carolina to address this quarterback position in the offseason, as are there for the Washington football team. I mean, you've got Jimmy Garoppolo, who's probably going to be out there on the free agent market, and then you've got some other bigger name quarterbacks who are potentially going to be moving this offseason, although we will have to end up seeing about that. But until another name is introduced into the situation, it's a more stable presence and can really offer and provide a higher and more consistent, or a higher ceiling and more consistent floor to this football team. DJ Moore, despite his young age, despite the talent he possesses, is someone who I would not look to rely on as a core center building piece of my Dynasty league. And then finally, Aaron Jones, the running back for the Green Bay Packers here. Coming from a Packer fan, I am looking to move off of Aaron Jones right now. I simply think that just like an Ezekiel Elliott, his heyday, his best production as a fantasy RB1 is long gone in the rearview mirror. Aaron Jones had his best 2 seasons in 2019 when he finished as the RB2 in fantasy football, and in 2020 when he finished as the RB6. But again, he took another step backward from that 2019 performance this season when he saw his attempts, his rushing attempts per game drop by 3 rushing attempts per contest from 2020 to 2021 here. And when I just bashed a few minutes ago on Ezekiel Elliott for having a career low of 13.9 rushing attempts per game, Aaron Jones was all the way down at 11.4 attempts per game, which again was 3 lower than that count in 2019 and 2020. And while 3 attempts at face value might not seem like all that significant of a marker, when you pace that out over a 17-game regular season, that's over 50 touches worth of volume that you're losing, and that is quite a significant number when you're looking at the broader perspective of an entire season. And then you look at the touchdown count from that 2019 season. Jones finished second in the National Football League with total touchdowns from scrimmage, finishing just behind Christian McCaffrey. He went from 19 in 2019 down to 11 in 2020 and regressing down to 10 here in 2021, and 6 of those came in the receiving game. So he was seeing far less volume on the goal line. That was something that was being intruded upon by A.J. Dillon, who someone will talk about here in just a second. But where Jones had 9 rushing touchdowns in 2020, he had just 4 here in 2021. So you're seeing statistical regression, and we have context to put behind that to understand why that's occurring. And again, that is where A.J. Dillon comes into the mix here. Like a Tony Pollard being introduced to Ezekiel Elliott's situation, A.J. Dillon is someone in the Green Bay Packers offensive room that comes in and eats up very, very valuable touches from Aaron Jones. It's really nice to see that he caught 6 reception touchdowns this season, but when you have a physical man like A.J. Dillon who can just ram defenders over on the goal line, it's common sense the coaching staff is going to give him those looks inside the 5-yard line, and Aaron Jones still gets a small fraction of those looks, but overwhelmingly, A.J. Dillon is the guy who is getting those opportunities. Again, just from a physical standpoint, it makes sense, and it's in the betterment and the best interest of the football team that they do so. But this puts Aaron Jones, who I still believe is an elite talent at the running back position. We saw the damage he can do as a receiving threat in the divisional round against the San Francisco 49ers. But when the opportunity and the volume isn't there for a guy who has never been a workhorse or a true workhorse for that matter to begin with, at any stage of his NFL career, that's where this becomes an issue. That's where this becomes an extreme case of quickly depreciating fantasy value. And that is not a situation you want to be in. I saw an instance where Aaron Jones was traded in my Dynasty League, and the owner of Aaron Jones was able to move off of him for a first-round plus package. So he got a significant amount of value in return for Aaron Jones. Again, if you have questions, a situation in your league that you're looking to move off of Aaron Jones or any of the players on today's list for that matter, again, drop that information down in the comment section below or join that community Discord server to get in contact with me and other members of our SFS community. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Leave a like before you head on out. And again, click that subscribe button if you're new around here. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.